What if a magazine wasn't just something you read, but something you literally had to survive? Well, welcome to today's Explainer, where we are going to treat the latest issue of the Apophis journal not just as a collection of articles, but as a full-blown, profound journey of initiation. Now, if you follow the journal, you already know it pushes boundaries, right? But Volume 3, Issue 5, it hits a totally different gear. We're moving deep into the space between myth and memory today, and we're going to review the exact path they've laid out across these pages. The editorial perfectly sets the stage for our exploration here, digging into perception, the real cost of magic, identity, and transformation. And it urges us forward with this incredibly simple yet heavy directive: step carefully, but step anyway. You know, the editors make it absolutely clear right from the jump, we are no longer at the beginning of the magical path. We are in deep waters now. So let's quickly check out the roadmap for this issue's initiatory arc. We're going to cover a point of convergence, the burden of awareness, sovereignty and shadow work, entering the unknown region, the dance of becoming, and finish up with a death and rebirth. Let's dive in.
Section 1. A point of convergence. Navigating perception and transformation.
Moving right into Section 2, the burden of awareness, Gilgamesh and the first moonchild. To really understand the heavy cost of awakening, the journal pulls together threads from ancient epics. It actually identifies Gilgamesh as the earliest moonchild, meaning a mortal acting as a vessel for immense divine influence. And this isn't just recounting an old story. It's presented as the foundational blueprint for a very specific type of spiritual burden. They call this double sight, and it acts as both an incredible gift and a massive burden. Think about it. Gilgamesh is 2/3 divine and 1/3 human, so he sees all the mundane duties and strict structures of the mortal world, but at the same time, he's endlessly pulled by the limitless, chaotic divine realm. This dual perception completely drives him toward a restless dissatisfaction with ordinary life. I mean, when you see more than ordinary men, you simply can't pretend you don't, right?
The author maps out a fascinating trajectory for this double sight. Gilgamesh starts out totally unbalanced. Honestly, he's tyrannical. It's only through his intense clash and eventual friendship with his mirror image, Enkidu, and then Enkidu's tragic death, that Gilgamesh is really refined. The absolutely crucial initiatory lesson here is that awakening to the divine isn't some magical escape hatch from humanity. Instead, it's a journey through profound loss that forces a much deeper integration with our human limits. You don't become a god, you become fully human, carrying the weight and knowledge of the divine.
Section 3. Sovereignty and shadow work, confronting the ego. Having awakened to this awareness, the journal shifts our focus to the fierce necessity of uncompromising self-sovereignty and confronting the hidden costs of our power. We transition from ancient myth to the brutally honest, lived experiences of modern practitioners. In a really powerful interview featured in this issue, Philippa Hazog brilliantly illustrates this point. She warns that maintaining your voice and flat out refusing to diminish yourself just to meet others' expectations is absolutely vital to true magical work. Listen to this. Do not mistake comfort for truth. You are not meant to kneel. She talks about how your existence isn't something you need permission for. It's a stark, uncompromising look at how conformity in the spiritual community is often just enforced silence wearing a pleasant face. And that uncompromising truth bleeds directly into Joan Fonaking's article. He uses the Nauthis rune, which is the symbol of harsh necessity, pressure, and shadow, to examine the Norse 9 worlds. He points out something I love. Gods like Odin, Thor, and Tyr aren't just lounging around on clouds playing harps. No way. They are exhausted, burdened leaders who literally sacrificed pieces of their own bodies to maintain order. Honestly, it sounds incredibly tiring to be a Norse god.
Vanini calls this the Asgard trap, and man, is it a trap. It's the suffocating belief that if you can see a problem, you are the one who has to fix it, and that asking for help means you're somehow a fraud. The article provides this profound look at how leadership and spiritual advancement can so easily become a suffocating prison of our own making, isolating us in a sort of slow-motion martyrdom, driven entirely by perfectionism.
Which perfectly built into what Vanini calls the Hall of Should. He challenges us to recognize the massive difference between expanding our true selves, genuine growth, and simply punishing ourselves to perform perfectly, which is just compulsive self-improvement. One actually makes you bigger and more capable, the other just makes you smaller in more and more impressive ways. Moving on to Section 4, entering the unknown region, enduring the deepest mythic substratum. Okay, So the journal maps out these specific triads of masks as necessary tools, because to survive the heart of the labyrinth, the article explains that you must slowly reconstruct your very faculties of perception and identity. It's a whole process. First, you prepare your senses. Then, you master the mythic field through flight and instinct. Finally, you undergo the descent using these highly specific techniques outlined in the issue, like Sinisalo to completely strip away your constructed identity, and Morndun to pass among the ancient dead completely unseen. It just proves that this work is not just abstract symbolic theory, it is rough, experiential terrain. Section 5. The Dance of Becoming, Crowleyan Motion. The journal completely shifts gears here to look at the philosophy of Aleister Crowley, to understand that initiation isn't some final destination to be reached, but a perpetual state of dynamic movement. One article brilliantly illustrates this with the concept of Horus as the hawk in flight. The horizon is never actually meant to be caught. It exists purely to draw the hawk into an eternal, purposeful flight. I mean, think about it. If you actually reach the horizon, the movement would just stop. In magic and initiation, stillness isn't the goal. The goal is the deepening of the motion itself. And this naturally leads us to Crowley's deceptively simple equation, 0 equals 2. Or actually, more precisely, 0 equals -1 plus 1. Now, before you panic about doing math, the idea here is that the universe only exists because unity divides into polarity and relationship. Rather than getting totally bogged down in complex occult jargon, just think of it like basic math defining existence itself. True stability isn't found in a stagnant 0, but in the constant, continuous change between those two opposites. The journal then contrasts two totally different ways of viewing magical frameworks. The traditional view of orders, like the Victorian occult group the Golden Dawn, was very much like a chessboard. It was heavily focused on legality, fixed positions, strict hierarchy, and control. But when we're dealing with living cosmic forces, we have to shift our perspective. Think of it less like a rigid board game and way more like a dance floor. We are participating in a dynamic, highly responsive environment of constant becoming. It requires rhythm, timing, and relationship. You aren't memorizing rules to dominate the board. You're attuning yourself to learn the dance.
Finally, Section 6, A Death and Rebirth, No Future, Zin.
This segment takes us deep underground into the journal's serialized fiction piece. Here, the character Medimi completely seals historical occultists John Dee and Edward Kelly into these ancient stone sarcophagi, plunging them into absolute, terrifying sensory deprivation. The whole goal here is to completely strip away their fundamental certainties. Medimi doesn't sugarcoat it either. She tells them exactly what to expect. You'll experience hallucination, delirium, and finally ruthless realizations of truth. Properly dead, properly reborn. Through this terrifying but absolutely necessary isolation, they don't magically discover simple answers. Instead, they find a profound familiarity with their own inner chaos and the heavy choices they must make entirely alone. Dee realizes his journey requires him to finally confront his deep-seated fear, and Kelly realizes no one is pushing him on this path anymore. He is actively choosing to walk it. As we wrap up this explainer on Volume 3, Issue 5 of the Apophis Journal, I want to leave you with this one thought. What is truly happening when the constructed self is completely stripped away? It's a stark reminder about the ultimate cost of real transformation. Because to awaken, to claim your sovereignty, to brave the labyrinth, and to dance with the universe, it means you simply cannot stay the person you currently are. So I invite you to step carefully into your own unknown regions. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and keep exploring.